Welcome to Beyond. Joining us today is Topaz Peretz, a British film director and artist focusing her life on telling stories through different mediums and collecting, expressing it through the lens. She grew up in 3 different places, Hong Kong, Bali, but mostly in North London, traveling as a child and acquiring spectrum of cultures, mixing with her own Israeli and Indonesian background. Topaz, so nice to have you on the show today.
So nice to be here.
Yeah, you know, as I read your story, this is really a unique one. I mean, you're so young in your early 20s, and yet you've accomplished so much as a director, film director, and certainly as an artist. And I believe you're also a pianist coming out with your own classical arrangement in the next few months. So, wow. No underachieving going on here. So take us back to your early life that led up to your career. Can you share with us some of the stories of how your journey got started?
As an artist or just as
in general? I mean, here you are as an artist, as a movie director. What were the sort of seedlings of your life that started planting those droplets that led you into where you're at today?
I think in general I would say because I was constantly interrupted between living in a first world country and a third world country and having those different mindsets and living through different situations, it's kind of evolved into an understanding of the true essence of what a human is, and I kind of put that on the screen, and I put that on a canvas, and that's kind of...
What drove that desire? What drove your desire to go that direction? Because I read also that you were painting before you were writing, so there was something about you, maybe it's right brain, you have this natural ability to connect with things and express it. Was it simply that you had experiences around the world, or was there something about you that even at a young age you said, man, there's something different about me that I want to express things in a different way? Because you kind of come across as an old soul, a little bit.
Yeah, I love painting. Well, honestly, I dabbled in all sorts of mediums. I did a bit of sculpture, a bit of printing, a bit of all sorts, and even metal like augmentations.
Yeah.
But for me, the most classic sense of art in oil painting is what really connected me and what really feels like I can translate what I'm expressing in the most elegant way for me. And so I've always been creative. I just think that it's, I mean, going back to the normal, you know, what everyone says, a picture says 1,000 words.
Right.
And even though, yes, English is my first language and I can iterate whatever I'm thinking and in a way that I want to say it, there's nothing that you can say that equates the same as a painting.
Right.
And so I kind of always knew that, and that's how I would always express myself.
Interesting. So what were some of the experiences that you went through early on that shaped your worldview? I mean, everybody has a worldview, right? If you look at the Marlboro Man or you look at football players, they look at life through a certain lens of experiences. So what was it for you, those experiences that shaped your worldview that led to the beginning of a career as a director and an artist?
I think it's that I understood from a young age that the world isn't perfect. I never had that lens where like the negative things of the world was hidden. Like most children, parents kind of,
protect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was very aware of everything, and so I looked at things with a realistic view from a young age. And I was also forced to look through different lenses, in the sense of looking through a lens as a 50-year-old, looking at a lens through the age I was, because I would have to spend the day in school and learn like a normal child, but then spend the rest of the time taking care of my younger sister and being like the sub-parent of the family. And I even spent days joining in meetings and of my parents at the time, and just kind of experiencing all points of view. I mean, I was sitting in a meeting with these old, like 50-year-old guys when I was 8, and have them talk about whatever they're talking about, and then every now and again I would say something and they would all pay attention, listen, and it was, it's as if it was, honestly, that was the biggest culture shock for me, was that living in England, I kind of always dominated the room. And coming to America, it's a lot more sexist in these big rooms, but that's just, part of the world and how it works.
Sure.
And it was kind of jarring because I guess I got to taste the life of a old rich white man by sitting in these rooms with meetings of these executives and getting that say from a young age to then juxtapose it to
America.
to coming over here where it's like they see that I'm young, they see that I'm female, and it's just like, okay, I don't even want to look at you or talk.
You're typecasted before you've even spoken.
Exactly.
Almost, yeah.
Exactly.
So acquiring such a broad spectrum of cultures as you have at a young age, how does this influence your subject matter of your films?
Well, honestly, I like to change the perspective. In all different societal cultures, there is a stereotype of another subculture, culture, country, whatever. And that goes alongside with topics and situations and everything. And honestly, people see that as a group. And what I'm trying to do is show a different perspective so that there's understanding, so that kind of thought is basically imploded and understood. And basically, essentially, it's all about building a true human connection in a way that is more understanding and everyone can correlate with each other.
That's well said. Very well said. So you released a short film recently, Tainted, that deals with a very difficult subject, pedophilia, a subject that most people want to push under the bed like the boogeyman or the scary monsters of their childhood. What was the motivation to bring such a difficult topic front and center?
So there are a few reasons why I chose this topic. The reason that I stumbled upon it was that I have this thing where if I don't know something, I need to know it. I need to know everything about it. I'm a true nerd to the core. So when I came about this topic, I always knew about it, but I never understood how a person can think this way. And that started all the research and going into it, like really exploring everything, and it only just happened to take 2.5 years to understand everything. And that went through research and interviewing perpetrators, victims, family members of perpetrators, family members of victims, and all different age groups, both victim and perpetrator, and to find all the different things that I'm trying to expose with my film and with what I'm doing with the film.
So 2.5 years to go through that process of learning. So some seed must have been planted in your heart. You said, this is important, so I'm willing to devote 2.5 years of my life to go deep in this topic.
So as I mentioned, I raised my sister, so that's always been aware. Like I've always had the awareness. Because
Meaning, be careful where my little sister goes.
Exactly. Like I wouldn't leave her in a room with another adult by herself.
Yeah.
I was always like, nope, she's not going there.
Yeah.
So I've always had that awareness, and I also understood how this subject is both so taboo that nobody wants to look at it, which of course, if you don't look at something, you allow it to go on. So does that make the whole society complicit in the harm of these children? That's a question that we're kind of talking around. And then the other issue is that it's so taboo that everyone jokes around about it. And it's just become a joke now. And I guess it always has been, because when something's so dark, you can only make light of it. It's just a natural human reaction. But at the same time, by doing that, you're validating the person who's a perpetrator into understanding that now they're, in a weird sense, socially accepted because it's now a joke. So there's whole different elements to it.
Yeah, that's profound. I mean, there's so many layers there to unpack, for sure. And I've done some segments on human trafficking and the mindset that goes behind that, or whether it be pedophilia, and it certainly all starts somewhere. So I want to take the audience a little bit on a little bit of the ride of your short film, Tainted, and just kind of describe what it is, and then I'll have a question. So short film describes a little boy who was raped by his uncle. It then shows a man trying to communicate the event to his mother that left him violated as a young boy. You can only imagine what's going through this guy's mind. An event that left him broken and perverted in his own sexual desires. In all of this, his mother is cocooned in her own world of denial as she clings to the image of a mother raising a perfect son, right? She believes her son is telling this to her to punish her at some level. As she turns a blind eye, further perpetrating the cycle of abuse, the son will dole out on others. As a writer-director, how do you approach such a topic with all of its pain and complexities to connect with the viewer in a way that makes the impact for the better?
I think it's one thing for sure is not showing the true most cruelty part of it, because nobody needs to be tortured that way. And that was a very careful thing that I did, because the point of the film is not to cause harm, but to show understanding and behavioral traits so that it can prevent children being harmed. So that was a very careful thing. I didn't want to cause anyone that did suffer from it to go through some
trauma.
Exactly, by watching this film. Regardless of such, it is still dealing with a hard topic. And most communication happens without words. It's through emotion, different little movements in body, you know. So most of the things that you denoted, weren't even said in the film. It was body and situation and different. But that's kind of how life works, and I just kind of put it in front of a camera.
Now, they can see this short film, Tainted. Can you tell the audience where they can go view it?
So you can see it on my website at topazperetz.com. And yeah.
Yeah, no, it's impactful. And, you know, the idea that the uncle did this to the boy and the mom's now in denial, how does the mom go to her brother and say, hey, by the way? I mean, I could imagine in families there's that dynamic, the relationships that are established, and to broach that subject like, I'd have no problem doing it for myself, but that has its own dynamic. I'm sure you picked that up in your research.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to answer that in two parts. Just to clarify that this film is a short film.
Right.
It's 12 minutes, and it's a proof of concept for the full feature. And so when writing the feature, I did actually write out a scene where the mother goes to her brother, to the uncle that traumatized the child. And it played out basically where she wanted to, her anger built all the way up to the point where she couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't stay in denial. Her son put it out in the open, and there was no way she could close it again, so her anger built up, and then all that rage that she's been suppressing finally comes out. She goes to the uncle, and she's like, and she basically says, I'm gonna call the police, I'm gonna do this, I don't care if you're my brother, I don't care. Like, you can't do this, this is my son, you harmed my own child, how can you do this? And then the brother just responds, you knew this about me. You knew it, and you let me near him. And it's this kind of duplex of, when you know someone is a certain way, there's a whole complex, because him saying that is, of course, it's victim blaming. Right. But there's a level of truth to it, because she was supposed to protect her child. And that scene, we kind of go into it a little bit, and we find out how he was harmed as well, and how she also did nothing.
So it's passed generally. The uncle probably was abused at some level, and he's passing the.
So this specific illness, in general society and through my research, I found that most families will deny anything happening, whether or not they know about it or not, and in most cases they do. And they try to deny it so that everything can stay picture perfect and all this kind of stuff. But what you're doing by denying is you're telling the child that what happened to them is normal. And by saying it's normal and not understanding and talking to them through about this horrible thing that's happened to them, you basically said, what's happened to you is normal, happens all the time, and we're not going to protect you from any danger. And what that does is it tells the child they can't trust you, right. that the world is going to attack them all the time and no one's going to protect them. And not only that, something as traumatic as that can cause a mental imbalance to occur. And if there is a hereditary gene of mental illness, it can inflict that and cause and trigger the DNA to worsen exactly. And what's interesting in my research is that pedophilia is a mental illness, chemical imbalance in the brain that affects the hormone in my research. So just to clarify, I'm not a doctor, I don't have a PhD, it's just my research, and I am reaching out to neuroscientists and professional psychologists to take on my research and so they can do their due diligence and see if they back it up and whatever. But from what I've found, it's basically someone who suffers from pedophilia, as they age, their hormones age with you. And that's, so when you're 12, you like someone who's 12 or 11 or 13, 20, you're attracted to people around 20, and so on and so on. Someone who suffers from pedophilia, they're aging, and then all of a sudden their hormones get stunted at 12, and they keep aging, but they're still attracted to 12, and they're aging, still attracted to 12. And that's essentially what pedophilia is. And if it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, as what my research says, then as a society, we're able to use that information to prevent someone who has this mental illness become sex offenders. Because there's a difference from someone being attracted to a child to actually acting on their desire and becoming a sex offender. So we need to intervene before that happens. And
so it kind of takes back to Jeffrey Epstein and that whole debacle. And clearly the authorities knew what was going on for many years, and they did nothing about it. And what you're saying is so clear-headed in how you've described it. You'd think that somebody would step in and say, you've got a problem, and then court mandate what the solution's going to be. And they just looked the other way, and so many people were affected.
Well,
so many
absolutely. People. And the thing is that it's systematic. And when you have powerful people that have met this chemical imbalance in the brain, they become aware of what they can and cannot do. And if they're in a position of power where they can move that boundary, they're going to move that boundary.
Yeah.
So we need, as a society, to implement an educational system or a health system or both, where we can intervene to children from a young age, because people who are traumatized, whether it's sexual, whether it's physical, whether it's just neglect, can lead on to, and this doesn't say they're going to, get pedophilia. They can get Alzheimer's, they can get schizophrenia, they can get depression. But this is a component people aren't seeing, is that they say pedophilia, oh, you're the other.
But what's important? Your film is opening up a door now. That's important to get to people talking about it, to recognize it as the issue it is today. The fact of the matter is, a lot of it's under the rug. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's epically happening, no question about it. And I'm sure pornography is not helping that at all, because it just takes every boundary and tries to blow it up. So for the audience, Tatum was chosen and screened at the Cannes Film Festival 2018, and is being picked up for a full narrative feature. So tell us where you're at in that process to bring this to the big screen and to really share this important story with people in a way that gets them thinking and open-minded to the issues of pedophilia.
So the film that's currently written, and it's the full feature. We are planning on getting 2 to 3 A-list talent attached. And it's currently at $4 million, the budget. And we are in the process of funding it, getting the equity, doing the business stuff of it. And hopefully we'll get shooting around the end of summer or the fall of next year.
Great.
And so I'm really excited about it because the whole point of the movie is to express behavioral traits so people can spot it, to understand what not to or what to do in situations. And that's for the audience to decide, and obviously it's made evident what should be the decision.
Sure.
And what's interesting about this particular movie is that we're taking the point of view of the perpetrator. And it is a psychological thriller. And the reason it's a psychological thriller is because for the first half of the movie, you think it's a romantic movie. And then you're completely in love with the character, and then all of a sudden
Plot twist.
it switches and you're like, oh wait, nope, never mind. Nope, I do not want to follow this character anymore. Nope, why did I root for him? Nope,
Right.
nope. And then that moment in the audience is a moment where it translates to basically, say it's your brother who's doing this to your child. You love him, and you've always loved him. All of a sudden, no, I can't love him anymore. But the thing is, you're always going to love him, but you have to stop what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same in the movie as an audience. You love him, and then all of a sudden you can't. And you're still going to love him, but you have to do something about it.
Right.
And that's what's...
And there's some dynamic tension there in that whole scene and that plot. So, you're obviously Tainted is just packed full of substance and deep societal messaging. What does this mean to you as a director and a writer?
For me, I'm not about, publicity or whatever. For me, it's just getting this movie out there, getting the message out there, because I don't like to create movies that say nothing. Everything that I create has a message, has something to say, not in a way that is negative, like a lot of these trolls you get, but in a way that says, hey, there's an issue here. Here's another perspective. We should do something about it. And nothing is done in a way that's a lecture, or nothing's done in a way that's like, it's experiencing something, whether you've experienced it before or you haven't, so that you can understand other people and have more empathy with one another just in general.
Yeah, that's powerful. So, not to be unmatched, you're currently directing and co-producing a psychological thriller set in LA called Dollhouse. What's the film about?
So this one's a lot more fun. It still deals with a hard topic. It deals with PTSD, and it's based off of sexual assault. So it's very current to the Me Too movement and was the inspiration for the movie for the writer. So I didn't write this one. I did write Tainted, but I'm directing both and co-producing both. So this one is this love dynamic of these two women that kind of become so dependent with each other that they can't function without each other, and basically interlinked their mental illnesses together, so that if to somehow create this malnourished person,
Codependent.
Exactly, and it gets so hard and tractful that it just implodes, which explodes on everyone else and all their friends and family. And it's set in a psychiatric ward, and we do bring to light other mental illnesses, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, and the like, and bipolar, and everything, so that there isn't like preference or whatever. It's just, this is the one we're focusing on at this moment. And what's interesting about this one is that, yes, it's about two women in love, but it's not. I don't classify it as an LGBT film, because most LGBT films are coming out stories and focus on sexuality, whereas this one doesn't. It's just like any other movie. If you see a straight couple, you're not gonna be like,
they're straight.
Yeah,
it's just part of what it is.
Exactly. You're not gonna hone in and be like, oh, this is straight. What's straight's being like? You know what I mean? It's more of a, oh, this is the story, and it just happens that they're two women. And that's what I think is so beautiful about this specific movie. And it's a very beautiful, elegant catastrophe.
Are you also raising money for this movie?
Yeah, so both are in development and looking for funding and getting funding. Yeah, it's
fantastic. So how difficult is it to write a script for a movie in general? I mean, as you think about and contemplate, what is the movie about? What's the plot? What's the dynamics? And you go into writing that. How difficult is that?
Well, writing is definitely a different process for each writer. Personally, it's okay. So I used to, as a director, I feel like I need to know every position on set and offset in order to be a director, so that I can have a communicative interaction with the people that I'm hiring. So I did act for 2 years when I was living back in London, and learn all the different techniques and all the different, practitioners the actors learn and go through and decide what they want to, what resonates with them the most. And so I took that education into my writing. And so when I write, I'm in the mindset of the character. And I essentially become a method actor, but really it's a method writer. And it is, but it's also painful when you're writing the topic of pedophilia and you have to take a breather every now and again. You're like, I can't. So obviously I'm a method writer when I'm writing, but I know how to get out of that immediately when I stop writing, which is important. Especially when you're doing something tough and you're in the mindset of a perpetrator, you have to be able to come out of it. And so that's
Wasn't that Heath Ledger in the movie Batman, where he got so insanely attached to that character that even after the movie, I mean, that's what caused his demise, where he was on meds, trying to cope, trying to get off of that character that he was so invested in.
People say that is the reason what caused.
I mean, maybe that's an oversimplification, but does that happen to actors where they just can't unlock from that character?
Severe cases, I've heard. Obviously, as a director, when I'm dealing with a hard topic like pedophilia, I make it imperative that I do not hire a method actor because of that specific reason. I don't want it to become a Heath Ledger situation. But if I'm doing a lighter piece, then I'm like, okay, great, this is perfect. So you have to be careful with that, and you have to really, as a director, understand who you're working with, who the actor are, how they process and how they work, because it's part of the movie, so it has to be important and part of the conversation.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Let's switch gears a little bit. Not only you're a director, but you're an artist, and you were painting before you could write, and you currently have an art exhibit called Enthralled in an exclusive gallery at a 7-star hotel in Bali. So what has been the response of Enthralled, your exhibit?
So Enthralled is actually, there's 2 parts, and one part's in Indonesia in this gallery, which is it's a beautiful place. And so I've been creating since a young age, as you mentioned, but I didn't know that I could actually make it into a career until I graduated film school. And I was like, okay, this is 2018, January 2018. Then I'm like, okay, I should do my research, figure out how it works. The industry, very different to normal consumerism, completely different industry. It's a very beautiful industry, but very complicated. So 4 months later, I got my paintings into this art gallery, and got a lot of attention from it, mostly from Asian dignitaries and royals, and now a lot of them are my private clients that I have commissions for, that I'm working on, and now I'm trying to bring that over to the Western culture, Western world. And so then I have this art event in a month, November 15th, over here in Orange County. And I'll be showing the second part of my collection, Enthralled. And I'm excited to see what happens, because it's a...
Do we know the location in Orange County?
We do. I can send you the address. Okay. It's a little secret, private.
Okay, got it.
It's a little fun one, yeah.
All right. Right on.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it, and trying to invite all the gallery owners, magazine reporters. That's what I'm trying to do. Trying to get started in California.
Yeah, nice. And as you can see in our artwork, it's amazing pieces. So, what can you share about your approach to creating art?
Interestingly, it's an emotional explosion. That's the best way I can describe it. And so it's a cycle with my film, because I will, whatever I'm feeling when I'm creating in movies, that pent-up emotion basically explodes onto a canvas. And most of the time, I don't know what I'm painting until I'm halfway through painting it. And it kind of just happens, most of the time.
Are you like a method artist? You're a method actor where you get really into it. Is it sort of that same experience where you're just so in that emotional moment that it's just coming out of your fingertips?
Usually, where I don't, honestly, I'm not even, I don't think I'm even present when I'm painting. It just kind of happens, and it's kind of like my own version of therapy, really. And I kind of it just happens. I don't even, it's like, oops, what happened? Oh, okay, there's a canvas with paintings, and it's all happened. Okay, what happened?
So what do the people connect with that buy your art? I mean, what is it that they see, they say, I like? What about it? What is it that speaks to them?
I have a through line where I like to really show innocence and women and kind of this childhood thing with everything, and kind of vulnerability, I guess, is my main thing. And I guess through my artwork, I kind of like to show people and remind people the beauty that the world has to offer, which is interesting because my film is so different to what I create.
It's pretty dark and intense. Yeah, it's just the opposite.
Yeah, so film's super dark,
so
and
your
then
mind's trying to say,
super
come
light.
to the light, Topaz, come to the light.
Well, I think there's a balance in everything.
Yeah,
so, so I like to really show people how beautiful things can be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, as of being a director and an artist isn't enough, you're also coming out with releasing a classical piano album by the end of this year. So is there an overlap in the creative process when you think about classical piano versus art versus directing?
So when I create, films are very meticulous and very personal and very strategic. Then with art, it's very free, and it's just an explosion, and it's just there. And then with piano, I kind of just improvise and it's another version of emotional explosion, I suppose. I never play the same thing twice. Everything is improvised. The entire album is improvised. Each song
Is it a one-cut shot at the song and then that's it?
Yeah.
You don't practice.
No.
It just comes like your art.
Yeah, it just happens. I've never played the same thing twice because I just don't. I think that there's something beautiful to letting something be and not honing into it and really. But then again, I don't consider myself a musician, so I don't have that work ethic in music. So for me, it's just about. For me, music is just an extension to my canvases and my paintings, and so. For this album, I'm actually dropping it November 15th on the art event.
Nice.
And so each song is to each painting. So same name to the painting to the song. So you can basically, I improvised this piece to how I was feeling when I was painting the specific painting, so that the viewer can experience the painting in a more visceral way.
Wow, that's a cool concept for an art. So you have the painting, the music by the same artist to evoke the emotion that was going through the artist.
Exactly.
That is a very cool concept.
Thanks.
You got to patent that because now it's out.
Well,
it's out.
Well,
it's cool, man. It's very cool. So what advice could you give an aspiring director or artist that's just starting out? I mean, they have these dreams of making it big and want to be an artist or a director somewhere, or maybe even a musician. What advice would you give them?
Honestly, I think that the biggest thing is to not let bad advice direct you, because you have to understand where the advice is coming from, whether the person is saying it because they're jealous or because they actually want you to succeed. And regardless of that fact or not, I think that you should just be true to who you are and understand your true essence as a person and put that into what you're doing and not let it waver from other people's influence, and be really strategic to what you listen to and what you use as a drive, because it can change the direction of where you're going, and you have to be careful because it's easy to fall and do something that isn't what you're wanting to do, or even something that's not ethically right.
Yeah, it's easy to fall on the swords of other people's opinions, and I say, who gives a flying whatever about other people's opinions, because they'll end up steering you mostly wrong most of the time, because you're right, there's agendas, they may be jealous, and I think, it is what it is. When you see someone who's really good, any of the great artists or any of the great athletes, you see what they're producing, and it stands on its own, right? And so if you can just be true to yourself, that inner voice, whatever drives you, it makes a lot of sense. It's probably hard to do in practice. I've had a gentleman come on that was writing music for Bruno Mars, and he was kind of getting pulled away from what he was about, and that's when I think he broke and said, not broke, but broke from that experience and changed course, because the idea that you can't be true to yourself as an artist and as a producer, if you're just doing it for the money, there's that experience, but it's probably not very fulfilling, I wouldn't think. Yeah.
And I mean, everyone has their road to success, or
Yeah, absolutely.
and success is just a perceptive.
What does that mean? What does success mean? People say I'm a billionaire. Well, when you die as a billionaire, the money stays here and you're dead. I mean, so
Right.
what does that mean? And I guess it probably varies to the person and how they define success. And then when they're older, either the ladder's against the right wall or the wrong wall or some wall.
I think the most important thing is that you're happy with who you are and what you're
Yeah.
doing.
That's key. That's a good point. Yeah, that's great. So if you can go back in time and give yourself advice, I mean, you're young, but you've accomplished so much and you've learned so much, you have a lot of roadmaps. What advice would you give your much younger self, maybe your 10-year-old self, 11-year-old self?
Well, I think I would say live a little in the sense of allow yourself to be a part of society and everything, and not be cooped up with work and taking care of everyone when you should be taking care of yourself too.
Yeah.
And people forget that sometimes, that they need to take care of themselves.
Yeah, because you're on this hamster wheel, burning both ends.
Yeah.
And you wake up, and ultimately, I think what people care about is how you made them feel,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the impact on their lives. I mean, as
Yeah.
selfish as that sounds, but I think that is kind of what it comes down to. So, who's that person who's had the most influence on your life at this point?
Oh,
Or maybe persons.
There's so many. I mean, when it comes to people I don't know, I would say people like Scorsese and Sergio Leone.
This could be like a speech at the Oscars. I like to think.
I like to thank people I've never met before.
But they've inspired you. That's
right.
That,
Exactly.
That says a lot.
Exactly. And I think it's just people who just do kind acts for no reason, and those are the people that stick in my mind the most. And I can't name them because we've never exchanged names or never even said hi. And I think those are the people that.
But they touch you in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Is there anything you'd like to tell the audience that we haven't covered?
Not really.
You cover it?
Yeah, I create art.
Yeah, movies, art, music.
Art in all forms.
Is there anything else that you haven't shared that you're working on that's a bubbling idea in a whole different area?
So I have a few. I have a dark gangster comedy that I'm writing. It's a fun one.
A dark gangsta comedy?
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. It's a fun one. And then I'm also got a period piece war hero story based on a true story. And that one's going to be fun too, because we're actually talking about the side that lost and following that side, and we don't usually do that, so it's a fun one too. And I'm also writing a animated piece, like a family piece, but that one's going to take a few years. It's animation, so that always
Is
takes
it typical of
forever.
directors where they're working on one project, but they got 10 other projects in the wings that they're also working on?
I'd say it depends on the director, because most directors don't write what they're, directing. Some do, obviously. Because I write as well.
How does Hollywood take these subjects? I mean, pedophilia and PTSDs. That's from sexual abuse. That's sort of in the Me Too moment. But pedophilia. How does Hollywood react to that?
Well, lots of pushback, mostly because a lot of the people in the industry feel like it's a dig on them, which says more about them than me, and what I'm doing. But obviously this isn't a studio film. It's independent, and so it's going to go through the route of the festivals and then, push it that way. And I mean, the whole point of cinema is basically showing humanity.
Yeah.
So why hide what's really going on?
Yeah, and you look at what Hollywood's pushing today. It's anemic. I mean, that's why the ticket sales are down. I know Will Smith just came out with a movie that just blew up and completely failed. He's a great actor, but I mean, they're taking vehicles and they're recycling concepts, and I think, you know, if there was deeper societal meaning in movies, get rid of a lot of the sex and a lot of the stupid violence and make it more connected human to human. It's just, but maybe they probably talked a lot of focus groups and what sells and what's going to drive a lot of tickets. But when I go to movies, it's just a dearth of quality. It's just nothing there. So it's a very, you know, occasional time I'll go to the movie theater, but you know, films like this that really sear the conscience and wake people up, or woke people up, as some people like to say, you know, it's not a bad thing, right?
It's important, and people want it. I mean, everywhere, everyone's saying stay woke. Everyone's trying to know the truth, and everyone's trying to be better. And
we have a hyper-informed, you know, populace now with social media and everything going on. Not that it's always truth out there, but you have a lot of smart people that are very informed. And I think that's the struggle with the mainstream media and probably the movie theaters, or the groups out of Hollywood that produce movies. You know, they can't pull the wool over people's eyes. I mean,
I mean, the thing is that you have people that have been running the movie business for decades and decades, and obviously they've done well since they're still there.
Sure.
But it's come to the point where it seems like they're scared to do anything different.
They got the formula, don't break the formula, because that's made X dollars over time.
Exactly, but now it's dropping. So as a business person, are you going to do something about it, or are you just going to keep doing the same thing?
And that's brought Netflix in, and Amazon, and a number of, you know, places getting in the movie producing business. And helping, you know, people like you get their voice heard.
And these are the companies that are succeeding because they're really understanding what the audience want.
Right.
And
rising concept. Right?
Yeah. And it's different.
Understand your
it's
customer.
Different.
Yeah. Where can they learn more about you again, Topaz?
My website, topazperetz.com.
topazperetz.com. Topaz, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really important subjects you're covering, hard-hitting, and man, I wish you nothing but success. I'm going to keep following your career at such a young age. That's completely inspirational. Obviously, you're not someone that sits still, and you have a lot of visions and passions and things you want to get accomplished in this life. So you're a tremendous role model for the youth coming up and people looking for a way. So thanks for having the courage to share your story and some of these hard-hitting topics you're touching on.
Well, thanks for having me and the kind words. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, that's it from Beyond. Thanks for watching. Again, you can follow us on social media at Beyond Ben Bobo and on our website, beyondbenbobo.com. And if you hit us up on YouTube, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Remember, until next time, becoming is better than being. Thanks, Topaz.
Thanks
a lot
for
of fun,
having
man.
me.
Yeah.